Las Vegas just posted its home prices at an all-time high 2 months in a row. Sounds like great news for anyone who bought a house there. Except, if you check a different set of numbers, from a different tracker, looking at the exact same city in the exact same month, you'll see prices falling. Not rising. Falling. So which is it? Is Las Vegas booming, or is it quietly cracking under its own weight? The truth is messier, and more interesting, than either headline lets on. Because underneath the record-breaking price tag, there's a housing market being pulled in two directions at once, propped up by Wall Street money and out-of-state wealth on one side, and weighed down by stalled mortgage rates, growing inventory, and a supply of hedge fund-owned rentals on the other. Stick around, because by the end of this you'll understand exactly why the record high you keep hearing about might be the least useful number in the entire story. 1. Two cities, two price tags. Here's the strange part. Ask the local Realtors Association what a house costs in Las Vegas right now, and they'll tell you the median price for a single-family home matched an all-time high of $490,000 in June, holding steady from the record set the month before. Sales were actually up double digits compared to a year earlier. Now ask one of the big national trackers, Zillow, and you get a completely different story. The typical home value sitting closer to $426,000, down nearly 3% over the past year. Redfin's numbers land somewhere in between, also pointing down, with the typical sale price slipping about 1% and homes taking noticeably longer to sell than they did 12 months ago, creeping from around 51 days to over 70. None of these numbers are wrong exactly. They're just measuring different slices of the same market. The local realtors group is tracking closed sales through the Valley's own listing service. Zillow is running a broader value index across every home, not just the ones that sold. Redfin sits somewhere in the middle, folding in its own national dataset. But when three respected sources can't agree on whether your home just gained or lost value, that disagreement is itself a signal. This is not a market with a single clean direction. It's a market wobbling between a genuine boom and a genuine slowdown. And depending on which price tag you're handed, you'd swear it was one or the other. 2. Rates are stuck, and so are buyers. If prices are debatable, the reason people are struggling to buy is not. Mortgage rates in Nevada have been parked above 6.5%, and they simply refuse to move. Housing costs nationally are sitting near record highs for the same reason. Stubborn rates paired with stubborn prices, while everyday inflation eats into what's left of people's paychecks. That combination is exactly why so many buyers are fleeing pricier coastal cities for supposedly cheaper ground. And Las Vegas keeps showing up on the short list of places people are running to. But cheaper is relative. Homes in the Valley are sitting on the market longer than they used to. Back in the frenzy years, roughly 4 out of 5 homes sold within 60 days. Now it's closer to 3 out of 4, a small shift, but a real one. And it shows up everywhere. In slower spring sales, in home builders logging fewer new contracts than the year before, in an entire local report admitting the lower end of the market is softening. Buyers haven't disappeared. They've just gotten pickier, slower, and a lot more willing to walk away from a house that isn't priced right. 3. The luxury market is playing by its own rules. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. While the entry-level and mid-range market cools off, the luxury end of Las Vegas real estate is doing the opposite. It's on fire. Luxury home prices in the Valley have been climbing faster than almost anywhere else in the country, trailing only a couple of Florida markets for the fastest luxury price growth in the nation. The threshold to even qualify as a top 10% home in the Valley has climbed from around $750,000 before the pandemic to well past $1 million today. Wealthy buyers are barely blinking at rate hikes that are sidelining everyone else, in part because roughly a quarter of luxury purchases are paid in straight cash. No mortgage, no rate sensitivity, no waiting around. Why? A lot of that money is coming from people leaving high-tax states like California and Washington, chasing Nevada's lack of a state income tax and a more business-friendly climate. It's a trend that's reshaping who gets to call Las Vegas home. The everyday buyer is stuck negotiating over rate locks and inspection contingencies, while the luxury buyer down the street closes in cash within weeks. Two different housing markets operating inside the same zip codes. 4. Wall Street never left. Now, for the part most house hunters never think to ask about, who actually owns the homes they're bidding against? Since the year 2000, investors have bought well over 100,000 homes across the Las Vegas Valley. Institutional buyers, the big hedge fund-backed operators, not your neighbor with a rental property, still control a meaningful slice of the valley's housing stock. Their buying spree has slowed dramatically since its peak in 2022, but the homes they already scooped up haven't gone anywhere. Instead of reselling them, these firms are holding onto them as long-term rentals, which quietly keeps supply tighter than it would otherwise be, supporting the very prices that make homeownership harder to reach in the first place. There's a warning buried in an old industry report that's worth repeating. Analysts once projected that within roughly 7 years, Wall Street-style entities could end up owning as much as 40% of all single-family rental homes in markets like this one. Whole neighborhoods have already been built explicitly as rental communities from day one. Houses that look like a normal subdivision, but where literally every home on the street is a rental, owned by the same institutional landlord. It's a structural shift that some critics compare, only half-jokingly, to the prelude of the last housing crash. A Great Recession, Part 2, just with corporate landlords instead of subprime lenders as the villain. 5. The ground itself is a risk. Then there's the risk that has nothing to do with interest rates at all, the desert itself. A significant share of properties in the Las Vegas Valley carry some level of wildfire exposure over the next 30 years, enough that insurers and climate risk trackers now flag it as a major factor for the region. That's a strange thing to hear about a city famous for concrete and casinos, but sprawling desert development pushes right up against dry, fire-prone terrain. Water is the other long-running anxiety. Las Vegas has spent decades being criticized as an unsustainable, water-guzzling city in the middle of a desert. Though the picture is more complicated than the stereotype suggests. The Strip itself now recycles the overwhelming majority of the water used inside its casinos, and researchers at a local university are even commercializing new technology designed to pull moisture straight out of the air as a future water source. Whether that innovation arrives fast enough to outpace growth is still an open question, but it's a genuine wildcard hanging over every long-term forecast for the valley. 6. More homes for sale, but not a buyer's market yet. If there's a silver lining for buyers priced out of the frenzy years, it's this. Inventory is finally climbing. Active listings have moved up meaningfully over just the past couple of months, and homes sitting without any offer at all are up nearly 20% compared to a year ago. But don't mistake more inventory for a buyer's paradise. Housing economists generally consider 6 months of supply the tipping point into a true buyer's market. Las Vegas is sitting closer to 3.5 months. That's a market shifting toward balance, not one that's flipped in the buyer's favor. Sellers who price realistically are still finding buyers fast. Sellers who don't are the ones padding those homes sitting unsold statistics. 7. The bet that Vegas is making on itself. So why do investors, developers, and out-of-state buyers keep pouring into a market with this many warning signs? Because the long-term story being sold isn't about this month's price. It's about what Las Vegas is turning into. Clark County's population is projected to climb from roughly 2.4 million people today to around 3 million within the next 2 decades. Growth that alone would justify a housing shortage, let alone one already squeezed by institutional ownership. Add to that a rail line under construction to connect the valley to Southern California at high speed, a professional baseball team relocating with a new ballpark on the way, a professional basketball league eyeing expansion into the city, and a growing push into biotech, advanced manufacturing, and film production. Even future Super Bowls are reportedly being angled for the city's home stadium. That's the bet underneath every one of these numbers, that today's cooling patches, luxury imbalance, and Wall Street ownership are just growing pains on the way to becoming one of the fastest-growing metro economies in the country. Whether that bet pays off for the person actually trying to buy a starter home there in the next year or two is a much harder question to answer. So, is Las Vegas a housing market you should be excited about or worried about? Based on everything here, the honest answer is both. Record prices in one dataset, falling values in another. A luxury market booming while entry-level buyers stall. Wall Street quietly holding a chunk of the neighborhood. Wildfire risk baked into the land itself. And yet, genuine, well-funded momentum building for the next decade. This isn't a market that rewards blind optimism, and it isn't one that deserves blind panic either. It rewards paying attention to which numbers you're actually looking at and asking every time someone tells you Las Vegas just hit a record high according to whom? This video is for informational purposes only and isn't financial or real estate advice. Always do your own research or talk to a licensed professional before making a housing decision.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more educational content. And as always, thank you so much for watching our videos. See you next time!